Hey, just a few days ago we had a long debate in one of our projects about documentation, how an open source project, was an open source one, has to present its documentation to the users. And some people said that we need to make extensive documentation with multiple pages and make a website where people can go through page to page and find information about this product. And my argument, which I decided to record now, is that I strongly believe that open source products, first of all, have to be small, and second, because they are small, there should be enough to have a single README file for any open source project. So this is my philosophy about documenting open source stuff. And I can explain more about that. The first statement is that open source projects have to be small. I think that we all should agree about that. That the smaller the product, the smaller the repository, the easier it is to support it, the easier to use it, the easier to understand the functionality of it. So when the project, when the repository becomes larger, its maintainers have to start thinking about breaking it down into smaller pieces, into smaller sub-projects. And then each of those sub-projects will have their own documentation. So when the code base is large, by large I mean larger than 15,000 lines of code. That is already a large repository, maybe 20,000 lines of code. So if you go up to 100,000, that no questions that this repository has to be broken into 5 different repositories. So good open source projects, they are somewhere around 10,000 lines of code or so. For this amount of code, and of course it differs from language to language, like Java repositories will be larger and Ruby will be smaller, for example. For this size of repository, one single README file should be enough to explain what's going on there. And if it's not enough, then again, I think it's time to break it down into pieces. There are only a few exceptions to this rule, I think, should be, is automatically generated documentation. Like for Java, for example, you have the collection of Java classes, and then you have the automatic tools like JavaDoc, which takes all of these source files and generates you the website with all the information. In this case, yes, you generate it and you put it somewhere else. But that's not like documentation, it's more like technical reference for your code. So you document your code inside your code, you put the comments inside your code, and then some tool generates for you the website with the documentation. This is all right, this is okay. But when you explain to your users what your product does, then one single README should be enough. You should start with and I have a blog post about that. I will give you the link also in the show notes. You start with a quick summary of what it is. Then I suggest you list things which are relevant to your project. Like you say, this is a new Java library for parsing, for parsing English text. And then you say, I know about this and that products which already exist. So if you want to check them, then here's the list of them. But my product is better because this and that. Then you list the features of how your product is different and better than existing ones. And then you go with the how to install it, how to start, how to use it, like a quick start, like you download it here. This is a simple example of how you use it. So you immediately inform the reader how they can jump into using your library without getting into details. And then if they manage to do that, then you start explaining how additional features can be used. You explain the additional features, and in the end you finish your document with what you do if you want to contribute, what if you're not happy with the functionality, how you give something back to this library. So that's the structure of the README file. And the piece where you explain additional functionality, it can grow and it should grow, and it may be larger and larger. And if it's even large, if the document is really long, this README document, I would suggest not to break it down into sub-documents, but keep it in one long page. And if it gets too long, then this is the information for you that it's time to break the repository into smaller sub-repositories. So that's my attitude. Hope I told you something new in this. Maybe many of you think the same, but it appeared that over the debate we had just a few days ago that some people believe that the more files, the more documentation pages you have, the better for the end user. I don't think so. I think that the one long page is the proper structure for everything. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.